Hello from SlideNerd and hello from Weebs. What's up folks? In this video, I'm going to talk about how to build relative layouts in Android using Java code. Now remember, the recommended default approach is to build layouts in XML unless you have some very specific requirements, like for example, the user clicks somewhere on the map and based on that you want to show something dynamic, and that time you can build relative layouts in Java code. Now this is going to be a very hectic procedure. In this video, I'm going to simply give you guys a theoretical overview of this. In the next video, I'm going to jump into Eclipse and show you guys exactly how to make that. So here, let me talk about the different steps you have. What we are going to do in the next video is going to build this user interface which you guys see over here using relative layouts and using Java code only. There will be no XML involved. So first, there are several steps for that. First, create all the view and view group objects. As you guys can see over here, there is a relative layout which is your view group, this text view, this edit text, this button, and again you have text view and blah blah blah, right? And all these things create objects for each of them. That is the first step. Second step, define the width and height for each of them. Again, for the relative layout, if you guys remember, this is going to take the entire screen up. So relative layout is match parent in width and match parent in height, and these controls probably take wrap content in width and wrap content in height. For those dimensions need to be defined in the second step for each and every view and view group. In the third step, define the rule for each. Now this is very special case. This applies only for a relative layout. So let me talk about what the rules are. Here you see this says please log in first, and then if you guys see, username comes exactly below this, the edit text comes to the right of this, and this edit text also comes below this, this other edit text comes below this edit text, and all these things you can see the relationships between each views, right, as terms of who comes where, and that is what rules are all about. All these rules are going to be defined in the third step. And then in the fourth step, what we have is we have additional properties. For example, this username text view has a text color white and it has a background color probably black. This edit text probably has a background drawable. It doesn't look like a default edit text which we use. Alright, so all these additional properties that you have, text size, text color, background color, those are your additional properties which are defined in step 4. Ultimately, you have step 5 where you add these controls inside the relative layout. Now remember, so far you have defined everything separately. Here you simply mix all of them together by adding the views to the relative layout. Ultimately, in step 6, you use the set content view method. To that method, you pass the relative layout object to tell the Android system that this activity will have an appearance defined by this relative layout object. Alright, so in the next video we are going to actually follow these 6 steps and build a user interface which looks exactly like this using relative layouts and using only Java code. So let me give a little more detail of each step so that you guys can understand stuff better in the next video when we talk about them. First, create all view and view group objects. Very simple over here. You guys can see whatever stuff is there on the screen. Create objects for each of them, right? You have relative layout, you have the text view, you have the edit text, you have the button. For each of them you simply have to create objects by using their constructors, right? That's the basic step. Now if you guys notice something, all the constructors take something called this as a parameter. Now what is this? Well, simply you're required to pass an object of context inside. Now context is nothing but a simple class that actually allows you to access the system level services in Android and resources in Android. Alright, now every view and view group takes this context object as parameter. Now remember one thing, your activity extends the activity class, if you remember, right? And the activity class itself extends this context class, and that is the reason why you pass this over here. That is a reference to your class which you created. It simply and automatically converts it to the context over there. Alright, this is nothing but a property in Java called superclass. Reference variable can refer to a subclass object. Now remember, if you guys don't know this property, I'll be talking about this in my Java videos. You guys can check it out over there. Alright, this is very simple. Next, let me go to the other step. Width and height for each. Now if you guys see the XML over here, it's pretty simple. You have layout width is match parent, layout height is match parent, and again for the text view you have some layout width and some layout height, right? It's compulsory to give layout width and height for each of the controls, whether they are views or view groups. How do you do that in Java code? Well, in Java code you simply use a class called layout params. Now this layout params is inside your relative layout class. Alright, and to create an object of that you simply say relative layout dot layout params. Now the reason why you write it like this is because your layout params is an inner class inside your relative layout. Alright, so that being said, let me actually go ahead and say layout params. It takes 2 parameters, which is your width, right? Width is match parent. This match parent is represented by this integer, which is a static integer inside your layout params class. Alright, so here you see layout params dot match parent, layout params dot match parent, and this is nothing but you have defined the width and height. Now remember, you need to add this width and height to this relative layout, right? Like it is an XML. So for that you use an additional step by saying relative layout dot set layout params dimension. Now this R is an object of your relative layout. This dimensions is nothing but this params object which you created above, right? And you basically do the same step for all the views. For example, for this text view, you probably have something like t.set layout params and dimensions if you define some other dimensions for the text view, right? Let me go to the next step. Define the rule for each. Now, if you guys remember over here, it says align parent left is true, align parent right is true, below is something, right? Now, what does this mean? Now, when you say layout below, you're simply saying that this edit text should appear below this guy. And who is this guy? It is probably some other text view with an ID equals to email text view, right? How do you write this in Java? Very simple. You simply use the layout params class which you used in the last step to not only define dimensions but also define these rules. For example, if you want to have this edit text, you want to define rules for that, you can simply make this layout params object by saying blah 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 is new layout params, define the width and height in the first step. In the second step, use the same layout params object and say dot add rule. Here you simply add the rule by saying relative layout dot align parent left, and that will make this rule, add it to the edit text. This will make the edit text align to the parent's left side, right? Now, how do you make a rule like this? By saying layout below. Here you need an ID. How do you write a rule like this in Java code? Very simple. Again, use the same method, add rule, but here you pass two parameters. The first parameter is this which says layout below. Second parameter is nothing but the ID. Now the ID is actually in Java represented by an integer over here. You simply pass an integer number over here, and that number is gonna find the control with the ID and set your edit text below that, right? Now remember, if things look a bit blurry to you at this step, I'm gonna talk about this in detail in the next video when we actually work in Eclipse, alright? So for now, you guys can hold on a bit. I'm sure about that, alright? Next is to define additional properties. It's very simple, which you guys have seen already. Background color, foreground color, text size, all those stuff. Then again, you have very simple step. You have to add the view to the relative layout. So for that, you simply say relative layout r.add view. So for example, T, which is your text view over here, R is your relative layout over here. This T params is the layout params for the text view, and that is the other parameter where you define the rules and width and everything for the text view, and you add that over here, right? This is how you add stuff. Again, I'll show you in Eclipse how this works in detail, so don't worry much about it if you guys don't understand everything. So here, ultimately in the last step, you simply use the set content view method and you pass the relative layout object R inside this, and that is going to set the appearance, alright? So in the next video, I'm going to jump into Eclipse and make this user interface in Java code. So if you like what you saw, please subscribe to my channel, comment, let me know your thoughts. I would love to hear from you guys. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next vid. Have a nice day.